Hey everyone, welcome back to my latest Lords Mobile video. Today I'll be doing a video on the Lords Mobile 7th anniversary. But more specifically, we'll be going over the history of solo traps over the last 7 years. So not everyone has played for 7 years. I personally have played for about 6 years on this account. This is my original account, the original solo trap. We'll be going back through the history of the solo trap, seeing how it has evolved throughout the years and how solo trapping in general has evolved. Because you know, most people are like, oh, if you're not XX Might, you're not a solo trap. I'm going to show you where solo traps actually started, and even like a 100 mil Might solo trap at the starting of solo trappings, you would have been like, what the heck is that? That's way too big to be a solo trap. What are you thinking? Anyway, so this one in general started in 2017. This is where my journey has started on this account. It started as a normal account, evolved into a solo trap, and then as the years went on, it had to keep evolving as a solo trap, getting bigger and bigger and bigger to where it is currently. It is at 275, which is kind of on the big side for solo traps, but again, that's another story, but we'll eventually get to where it is right now. It has killed 488 million troops. I believe it has over 490 mil kills, so I'm not sure where the extra like 10 mil kills are. Is that from hitting traps? Whatever it is. Anyway, so let's go to the original solo trap, one of my first videos on this channel, and let's check out how solo traps were 6 years ago. So let's go back. So we are back in 2018. Unfortunately, I don't have any clips from 2017 because I didn't start my YouTube channel until 2018. But before this, the comp for a solo trap would have been just pure tier 1. So there have been no tier 2, no tier 3 in the comp. Traps back then were very tiny. 40 to 60 mil Might was a solo trap. If you're any bigger than that, then people will be like, you're not a solo trap anymore. Again, days have changed since then. Keep in mind, back then, the Emperor would have been Bren Chong. He would have just had full gold gear. He would have had champ gear, but champ, keep in mind, was 10 times more expensive in 2017 than it is today. A $100 champ pack, you got 100 champ chests. That is it. Today, if you get a $100 champ pack, you get 1,000 champ chests. So basically 10 times different. There is no mythic gear, no familiars, no counter, no artifacts, none of that stuff back then. It was just base gold gear. Some people had champ, not a lot of people had champ since it was so expensive, and there was no tier 5 troops, just tier 4 troops. People were running mixed tier 1 comps, like 9 mil tier 1. You were capping everybody. You were totally fine at 40 to 60 mil Might. This is a little bit further on. I believe this was 2018. So you can see my comp here. I had 9.1 or 9.3 million troops. You can see what I was running here. I had a very small front line at this point. I had 948 or 1,000 tier 2. I had a little bit of tier 3 in the back line as well. I also used to actually go into Fury sometimes and attack people and all that, so I had tier 3 for that. And then my back line was, this is a basic baby trap comp nowadays, but this was the literal main trap comp back in the day. Tier 2 front line, tier 1 back line with tier 1 archers and cav, and you had a ton of them, and you capped everyone. Like, no one was walking back. You're totally fine with this comp back then. You'd be 70 mil Might. You could actually take rallies too at this point. It was a lot of fun. Again, this was solo trapping back then. I believe I was around 70 million Might at this point as well. So keep in mind, I wasn't very big. So this was early 2018. But as the event or the updates came out, Mythic gear came out. What was the other one that came out? Right after Mythic gear would have been Familiars. Keep in mind, Familiars were not around back then, so this was before Familiars. And I remember Familiars, the update. We'll actually speed up to that. Actually, maybe we'll show you the rally. 1 second. So here we are in 2018. This was me taking a rally. As you can see, this is a mixed rally. So again, they were setting mixed rallies back in 2018 as well. They were not very effective, I can tell you that much. Counter research wasn't out, and I was basically getting rid of infantry in my front line here and trying to get frontline reinforcement. So this was almost the original reinforcement trap, if you guys are wondering. This is probably the first video that on my channel did really well as well. This was, yeah, this one currently has like 70,000 views, this one video. So you've probably seen the video if you've been following me for a while. But again, you can see I am 70 mil might. They are sending a full rally at me as well. So I'll be taking a full rally on that. I was just making sure I got full reinforcements before I did anything as well. So yeah, I wish I had a 50. Again, my account didn't have much back then. I didn't have very good gear. I had complete free-to-play gear at this point as well. You can see, yeah, they are sending a full rally as well. I'm just checking my wall, making sure I currently have the right thing. You can see my war gear is the worst war gear you'll ever see. No jewels or anything. I've only been playing for a while. This wasn't a full tier 4 rally, but it was a full 3.4 rally. So again, let's take a look and see how it went. I did end up winning the rally, only lost 32k troops. So again, didn't cap it, but did really well. And again, we'll move on to the next part. I believe the next part is when Familiars came out, and you'll see what happened after that. So actually, the next update in the game was not Familiars. I was totally wrong. It was Mythic Gear. So after Mythic Gear came out, we had to kind of update our comps. Keep in mind, people didn't get that much stronger with Mythic Gear. There wasn't that many more stats. People weren't really running Mythic Champ, and there wasn't a very many people that actually had that at the time, because keep in mind, Champ was still super expensive. But a lot of people did get Mythic Gear, and I had to re-updo my my comp because I did actually burn from a full Mythic guy on my old comp. You saw the smaller comp I had, and this is the comp that actually ended up happening. I ended up having 12.8 million troops at that point, so it's pretty much the same comp I had before. The only difference was I added more tier 2, more tier 1, and more tier 2 and more tier 1. So I had a bigger tier 1 front line, or tier 2 front line, and a bigger tier 1 backline with 6.5 mil archers, 4.5 mil tier 1 cav, and 1.3 mil tier 2. I still had a little bit of tier 3 in my backline. I was running an 80 mil might account, and that was totally fine for Mythic Gear. But there was more updates after this, so I'm going to actually fast forward to the next update, and we'll check that out. Hey, so we have fast forwarded to 2019, and Familiars have just come out. So in 2019, Familiars came out. There was still no tier 5 artifacts, tempering, any of that stuff. But Mythic Gear was out, and Familiars just came out. I remember at this time, everybody was freaking out. Like, oh my god, stacking Familiars, they add 100% every 10 seconds to someone's comp. How are we ever going to cap these? Then there was like the pack 5s. We had no idea what was going on with those. And like, they're just doing 1 million damage to everybody. But we were actually okay. We still had comps that could cap these guys. We weren't really taking a ton of reds. You can see this account I'm running is still under 100 mil might. People weren't putting like huge traps at this point. You could still be 90 mil might, be a solo trap, be totally fine. The guy who just hit me was full Mythic Gear. I don't believe he had pack 5 Familiars. But even with pack 5 Familiars, people didn't have enough attack damage to do enough damage that you would actually need to change your comp. Keep in mind, I was running a tier 2 frontline with infantry. I had tier 2 cav, and then I still had 6 million tier 1 range, and it was still working fine. I mean, I capped this guy, and my leader is still walking back. Keep in mind, this was without my leader, I capped this guy. So I was doing the 1000 IQ trap, capping this Mythic guy with, like this guy with full Mythic without my leader, totally fine. I took 300k damage. That's nothing. So anyways, so that was 2019 with Familiars. The next big change after this was tier 5. Again, people freaked out. We had to change our comps. We had to go a little bigger. And that was the first time we actually saw a lot of solo traps over 100 million might, was when tier 5 came out. So let's fast forward to when tier 5 came out and check out the comp then. Hey, so we're going to fast forward to 2020. This is after tier 5 has come out, before the counter boost came out. So there's no counter boost in these tests or anything like that. Again, you can see the comp I was running. I did end up deleting the tier 1 archers. I was just kind of seeing what would happen if I still had them in there. But obviously I wanted to be a little bit smaller. And again, this is kind of the first time you see solo traps in that like 150 million Range was around this time. This was post tier 5 because our 100 mil solo traps were not doing very well. They were kind of walking back from us, burning us, all that stuff. This was the last thing we kind of did before we were under 100 mil. So we ended up going tier 3 backline and tier 2 frontline. So keep in mind that was this. Once counter came out, we had to kind of change it all up again because our tier 2 frontlines were starting to basically get wiped out. I decided honestly just to go tier 4 after that. But at this point, I was still a tier 3 account, 150 mil might. I was still able to cap these max guys with tier 5. Again, the first test was just tier 4. I just wanted to see how much damage he would do with tier 4. He ends up going tier 5 after that. But again, I'm not going to go through the whole testing video, but that's kind of where we ended up. After I delete the tier 1 range, I was around 150 mil might, and this was 2020 pre-counter research. So no counter familiar, none of that stuff. So anyway, so let's move on to the next kind of update after that, which would have been counter. So the next big change we really see is when the counter hero in the counter research came out. That was late 2020. Again, this clip in the background is kind of the aftermath of a massive gangbang I took from that kind of post-counter sort of thing. You can see I literally capped almost all of NPS, XRX, XIX. I was offline in my construction gear. So again, I changed my comp. I went over 200 million might. You can see here, I actually dropped down to under 200 mil might during the gangbang because I didn't get on until I was under 200 mil might. I literally got online in the middle of the gangbang after I'd taken like 20 hits offline in my construction gear. I got on 200 mil might, threw on my regular gear, and was able to cap it. Again, this is post tier 5, post familiars, post counter research. Tempering had not come out at this point. Artifacts had not come out at this point. And this was kind of the comp I ran until pretty much Artifacts came out. This was the comp. It was still sort of working after Artifacts, but once people started maxing Artifacts, it stopped working. It was a 220 mil might rain trap comp pretty much, and I was using that the solo trap for the longest time, probably 2 years after that. Again, other people were still using the tier 3 comp. They were running a massive tier 3 frontline, like 3 mil tier 3 infantry or range, and then just a tier 2 backline with tier 2 range or cav or infantry, depending on whatever the front line was. So again, that was basically the trapping meta at that point. People are still trying to be under 200 mil might. I decided to just go all the way up until what was it, like 220, and just stay around there. And it honestly was working. Keep in mind, I took pretty much this whole gangbang in my construction gear and was able to cap people pretty easily. And I really didn't need to use my war gear until Artifacts came out. So about 2 years later was the first time I started having to use my war gear, other than massive gangbangs like this one. So let's fast forward to where my solo trap honestly is right now. And it's massive. So again, this is right now currently in 2023. Let's go to where it is right now, and I'll show you basically what comp I'm running. So we're going to fast forward to 2023 now. This is Artifacts. Everything is out now. I'll show you my current comp that I am running. It is a tier 4, tier 3, tier 2 comp currently. So keep in mind, I could technically delete all these tier 2 range here, and I could drop quite a bit of might, could drop some of the tier 2 infantry as well, and I could be a 240 mil trap. So technically it's only about 20 mil might more than I was in 2020, late 2020 when I took that gangbang. So it really hasn't got that much stronger. Keep in mind, this trap was really strong back then. Now it's not. I still take a ton of reds from full counters and stuff like that. So the reason why I'm keeping the tier 2 in here is if I ever get hit by a gangbang, it's nice to have that extra, that front line there just to take some more reds, because keep in mind the Sanctuary now saves up to 80% of your troops. So taking reds nowadays is not as bad as taking reds in the back then you didn't want to take any reds because there was no Sanctuary. You wouldn't get any of the troops back, but nowadays you can still manipulate it a little bit. So keep in mind, over the years it has moved up. I still got gangbanged in the last KVK. So keep in mind, you're saying, oh, 270 mil might. That's way, way, way too big to be a solo trap. No, 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 no. 100 mil might's way too big to be a solo trap. Keep in mind. So again, at one point, 60 mil might was a solo trap, 70 mil, 80 mil, 90 mil, 100 mil, 150, 200 mil. I mean, there will be another update, I'm sure, and eventually we will have to be over 300 mil. Keep in mind, that's going to be the meta at one point, and it's going to be hard for people who haven't played in a couple years to wrap their heads around that. But that's the history of solo trapping over the last 7 years. People just keep getting bigger and bigger. Keep in mind, you don't need to be 275 mil right now. But again, you can be and still get hit. I got gangbanged in the last KVK. Got a pretty good ransom from it as well. Did really well because, keep in mind, I'm pretty safe right now. Yeah, this is post artifacts, post tempering, post all that stuff right now, currently in 2023. So if you're watching this in the future, the new trap meta might be something different, might be completely different, even if you can solo trap in the future. Who knows? Because the updates keep coming, and they will keep coming. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the little history of the solo trap on my accounts. If you guys have any questions about solo trapping, let me know. Keep in mind, 275 right now is not the current meta. I am really, really big right now. This is more for like huge gangbangs where people are like black and winging you and stuff like that, and I could technically go much smaller, and you can still be a tier 3 solo trap. You don't need to be tier 4. I just went the tier 4 way. It was just easier for doing the 1000 IQ trap and all that stuff I was doing back in the day, so keep in mind. Anyway, so that's my 7 years of the solo trapping and the celebration event that's going on currently. And yeah, so that's my solo trap, my memories of my solo trap. Again, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.